Cool. All right. Hey, technical difficulties always, and we sometimes edit them out, and sometimes we don't because this is an authentic show where we show the messiness, the reality, I don't know. What am I saying? This is world's greatest.
You don't edit.
World's?
That's what it is.
Hmm?
Which is like life itself, Joseph. Would you agree?
Yeah.
You can edit it. You can try and then try to make a nice, pretty social media page, but then it all just kind of falls apart eventually if you're not honest with yourself.
Maybe
Right.
that
It's
was
a
the
good
entire
analogy.
key.
Life is like a social media page. You can pretend
is.
it's all pretty on the outside, but really there's darkness within.
Well, maybe there's just some corners you want to trim. But hey, when I look at the news lately, Neil, wow, just when
Yeah.
I thought this coffee was going to pick me up. There you go, pulling the rug
By
out
the way,
from
I
under
would
me.
say, that's not going to be topical by the time we drop this episode, but terrible things are happening all the time in the world, so it really doesn't matter. Just don't make any specific references to the tragedies you're referencing, and something bad will happen in like 4 months, and yeah.
Very true.
That's
Ollie Khan, will you do us the honors of introducing our guest today?
yeah. Nothing, man. Talk about getting my mind right. Here we go, though. Today's guest is a living testament to resilience, purpose, and rewriting your own story. Joseph Kibler. I hope I said that right.
You did, and you're one of the few.
Wow. I mean, I'll be honest. Just could have been like the elf, but I didn't. Joseph Kibler is an actor, writer, producer, and activist whose life and work have helped reshape how people understand disability, HIV, survival. Born with HIV and severe physical impairments, Joseph was told he wouldn't live past 4 years old. And if he did, he'd never walk. He proved everyone wrong, going from a wheelchair to walking with a cane and eventually completing the LA AIDS Walk. Joseph has built a dynamic career on screen and behind the camera, appearing on shows like Chicago Med, Criminal Minds, Good Trouble, and CSI Cyber. He's also co-produced and starred in an award-winning documentary, Walk On, which follows his journey as a young person born with HIV. Beyond his creative work, Joseph has become a powerful voice online, using his platform to educate, advocate, and destigmatize life with HIV and cerebral palsy. But his most important role to date is having recently become a father for the first time to an 8-month-old baby boy, Milo. And I say that out loud, full on knowing the weight of an 8-month-old. Please welcome Joseph Kibler to World's Greatest Dad.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. Can I hire you to walk around with me places and do that? That'd be wonderful.
Yeah, but I have to be able to pronounce destigmatize.
That's all right.
You know what I'll do is we'll just get you like a talk boy, and you can just play it back, and you can
Perfect.
slow him down, speed him up, or do it in real time.
That's
Whatever
great.
the circumstance.
That's
takes.
perfect.
You could put that inside like a doll version of me. I mean, at this point, with technology and 3D printers, I don't even know why Neil still uses me. There should be a 3D printer at this point.
Yeah, I don't want to pay the yearly. You're cheaper,
Oh, there you go.
Oh, God, isn't that the truth?
and then they're gonna probably give me some deal, and then re-up. Get me hooked on the AI version of Ollie, and then be like,
There
oh,
you
actually
go.
now it's $150 a year.
There you go.
Yeah,
just
that's
slowly
true.
sneaking it up like Netflix. Just every month, just another $2.
I tell you, I get this email from Disney about a month ago. Hi, just want to let you know, it's going up to $140 a year. Just a heads up. And I'm like, what am I gonna do? Cancel it? Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
I'm stuck.
Yeah.
Joseph.
Yes.
Well, thank you for joining us. We have fun here. We're silly, but sometimes earnest. I kind of think we're like a oh, jeez, I was going to say a Rob Reiner movie, because it's like it's a lot of, I know, Ollie, I didn't...
Eating your own words.
It's all I can think about the last few days, and,
How can you not?
it's funny and sad. Not what happened, but his movies, he hits all the emotional notes, and I think I get the sense that that's kind of your vibe and your story, and that's what we do here because fatherhood is kind of absurd, kind of silly, but also very important. And that's what, as someone who, tell me if I'm getting this right, has made a life of talking about difficult things and figuring out the way to talk about them and maybe code switch. I think the part of why we started this show, podcast, whatever you want to call it, is because, people don't talk about being a dad in the way people talk about being a mom,
Right.
or talk about anything. I think it's also like it's often an also ran, and we decided that we want to make it the main thing, and that's why you're here. So take us back. We hear your 8-month-old cooing in the background. He sounds happy, but that could turn. We know we've been there. Tell us, take us back as far as you want to about, when you started talking about having kids and when you made that decision and then that journey.
Well, it had always been something, we had wanted, my wife and I, my wife Carrie, we had wanted to build a family. But before that, for me, it was always this question of like, it's tough because for the longest time, being born HIV positive, dealing with that struggle, and then being disabled and dealing with relationships, it always felt like a little bit of a video game where I had to like complete one part of things to get to the next part, and like to get to the next boss and the next thing, where it was just like, okay, I've tackled my disability stuff. I'm all good there. Now it's time to figure out the HIV stuff and relationships and people, and getting myself the confidence I needed and finding the right relationships and building myself up. Because like in my early 20s, I was very insecure about myself and what I had to bring to the table. And when you're insecure like that, you allow people into your life who take advantage of that and who maybe set the bar even lower for yourself because, so for a long time, I kind of like removed the family idea from my life because I wasn't in a place to think about having a family. I wasn't surrounded by the people. My relationships at the time weren't with people that I could imagine having a family with. And so it felt like so far off. And then when I met my wife, we just fell in love so fast and everything felt right. And we moved. I mean, we got married in 2023, and then we pretty much immediately went to trying, and we didn't know what that journey was going to be like. We had no idea if it was going to be a quick one. I mean, I was trying to get ahead of it. I was setting up urologist tests and like appointments like 6 months in advance just to be like, in case it doesn't go for another 6 months, I want to be on track to doing the next steps. And as we go, things, fluctuate. And it was just one of those things where, I had already gotten to the point where I knew that my HIV is undetectable. So I am untransmittable. So I cannot transmit HIV to my son or future baby or my wife or anything. And so we knew that was a possibility. And so that set us up for success in that regard. And so we just kind of, when you decide that you're like, oh, I'm going to go through with this, there's never a moment, in the beginning we're like, we'll wait till we get a better part of our career. We'll wait till we've gotten another gig done. We'll wait till we're settled in a place and if you play that game, you're never going to do it. Because there's never going to be the right time. There's never going to be, this is the moment to have a child. It's just going to be like, you have to just decide you're going to have one and move everything else around that. Because you'll just wait and you'll wait and you'll wait. And, we decided, okay, we just have to. We have to go for it. And it happened very fast. And we were very surprised by that. And so now this whole process is, I had a very tough relationship with my own father. And so this process has been very healing in that way. But it's also been one of those things that I've been very cautious about, like, making it only about healing my dad stuff. And in that, not being present for him. It can feel like sometimes healing your trauma can feel selfish because it has to be. But you have to show up for him, and he doesn't have any of that. He doesn't know about my dad. He doesn't know about the pain of that. He has a beautiful life. And so if I'm stuck in my trauma and being like, oh, this is healing me, this is healing me, I may not be showing up for him. And I may not be doing what's right for him in being present and just being playful and just being silly and being there supportive and being there as dad, because I'm still trying to deal with my dad. So it's been a very complicated but very rewarding experience so far.
How did you deal with all that? I mean, it's so funny because it's like you have an 8-month-old. Like, this just happened. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? My God, this just happened. So yeah, I'd love to just kind of know a little bit more about your process when that started and how you dealt with that. And man, you got wrapped up, bro. I mean, it's just crazy. It's like you have an 8-month-old. Yeah, fresh out the oven. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying?
Yes, he is. And he's a delight. He's wild. He's crazy. He's dramatic. He's full of emotions. And every moment is you have to be there, just there with him. But no, in terms of how I dealt with like dealing with my own father trauma and going into that, it honestly it happened pretty quickly. And this when I share this story, it sounds like a negative, and I want to make it a positive because it really is a positive. When my son was born, the big thing I questioned all the time with my father was like, how could my father do all the things he did, ruin our relationships, get all these addictions he dealt with, struggling with like being at home and not being around us and just making his life kind of like digging himself into a hole. And I'm like, how could he do this stuff if he loved me? How could he do this if he loved our family? And it was this big realization when we had our son Milo and I was holding him for the first time, the kind of love that I felt that I would never do that kind of thing to him. It dawned on me how you do that to somebody that you love is by not loving them. And that he was not in a place to love me or love our family. And that's actually okay. Because to me, that's actually easier to comprehend and to realize that he never felt the thing that I felt with my son immediately. And so then what he did in his life and how he led his examples and what he did for himself was on a different path and on a different plane of existence than the one that I'm on. So I don't have to worry about falling into those traps. I don't have to worry about being like him because we're not. We're not the same, and we exist in such a different way, and I get to be present and loving with my son, and I get to let go of the fact that he just couldn't, and he just couldn't be there for me. And so therefore, it was freeing. It was really freeing because I could kind of let go of this idea that if he had just tried a little harder, he was not in a place to try harder. He couldn't. And so that's okay, and I had to let him be that way.
Can I ask,
Yeah.
did it really happen? Like, the way you're describing it sounds like a movie. Like, was it a moment or was it a series of moments that kind of become this conflation, this, I mean, that's beautiful. But, like, was that the climactic really when you first held him? Or was that the first revelation and then you still kind of struggled and then you kind of thought it again? Because I find in my life sometimes, you come up with something and then it's about convincing yourself then that that's true over the next years to come.
I think I was nervous and I was anxious with dealing with my father's stuff very much the entirety of the pregnancy and struggling with it. And I was like, thinking about it, and I've been writing a memoir. So I think a lot of it was just so at the surface. So even though it feels like that is the climax, it was the climax of a year's worth of struggling with it. So it wasn't just this epiphany that happened in the moment of holding him. It was the revelation of like a year's worth of thought and anticipation and fear and concern and just getting stuck in my dad's own story and not dealing with my story. And
Yeah.
so I think you're right in that way of like, it does kind of sometimes feel like it neatly wraps up, and how we retell things almost in the nature of retelling something. You do it enough times, you create this elevator pitch version
Right.
of your life. Um, but no, it's something I'm still tackling with, and there are highs and lows. I mean, it's you could have a great day, and then you could have a hard day that's just you're struggling, and you're like, am I doing this right? Am I being a good dad? Can I be a good dad? Um, am I still wrapped up in myself too much? Am I not? And while still having a life and having a career and having interest and still being a person, which is important because you want to model examples for them. You want to be an individual. You don't want to just be existing only to serve. But at the same time, you want to be present. It's such a tough thing. I told myself I was going to journal and write my memoir this first year, and I was going to write these entries of like as it was going. And I started out with like week 1, week 2, and then I'd gotten like week 4, and then I got like a month 2, and then slowly it's been like I think I left off the last one was like month 3, and then I'm just done, and I have not been able to go back to it since. And it's like, how do you write in the moment what's happening, and you can't. You have to be there. There's no time for it. That once you realize that too, that's been like a big revelation, is that there's just no that sometimes you just have to set aside other things because they're not going to wait. They're not going to wait for you to sit down and ponder and pontificate.
Okay, so I just gotta dive in here, because when Neil was so kind to present basically your bio, your one sheet, like it's pretty incredible. I went downstairs and I was like, you're not gonna believe this. This is who we're gonna be talking to at 10, 10 my time. There are things people are aware of, but really, I think our understanding of them is kind of limited, and they've changed to a degree. HIV is one, cerebral palsy is another. But I just kind of want to kick that off with you describing that journey with just this. Speaking of elevator pitch, you were told you would not live past 4, and you did. So can you describe to us how that happened, how you did it, and specifically how it relates to both HIV and cerebral palsy?
Of course.
And even just kind of describing what they are, because I'm seriously, I think people are aware of it, but they don't have intimate knowledge of, okay, this is what this is. Right. So
I was born in 1989, and I was born with HIV and cerebral palsy. To get the first things out of the way, HIV affects your immune system, which makes you weaker and susceptible to other illnesses. So often when people pass away of HIV or pass away of AIDS, which is when your T cell count goes below 230, which is the thing that keeps your immunity strong. When I was born with it, at that time, they weren't testing my family, but my demographics. So essentially, my father had unknowingly transmitted HIV to my mother after being unfaithful. And so he contracted HIV, he gave it to my mom. They didn't know until my twin brother and I were born, and we were getting very sick, and we weren't developing on schedule, and we were struggling, and they brought us and they did every test in the book but HIV. And because at that time, they weren't testing women who were middle class, heterosexual, Caucasian. My mom didn't fit the bill at all for what they were looking for at that time, because what they were looking for was a stereotype, and it wasn't actually who could be affected by HIV. And so finally, when they tested her, they're like, or they tested us, they're like, if they come back positive, everyone here is positive. Your dad, my father, my mom, and it turned out to be the case. They got us over to the National Institute of Health. And so my twin brother and I, ended up on the initial drug trials for infants with HIV. So under Dr. Fauci, actually. And so that helped identify the right dosage of medication to provide infants who had been born with HIV through that process. Unfortunately, my twin brother had gotten pneumonia, and he passed away at about 1.5 years. And from then on, I went through every drug trial that was available. I did everything, every medication, every liquid medication, every injectable that they put on the market. And I went from hospital to hospital over the years. And how it affected my disability is I had a rare situation happen, which is the HIV affected my gray matter, and which affected the basal ganglia. And so the fine motor skills, which is what cerebral palsy is it affects, usually there's a loss of oxygen at birth, and it can affect your muscles. It can create spasms. It can create fine motor skill issues. And the degree for cerebral palsy is vast. It looks like many, many different things. So it can often be almost unnoticeable at all, or be mistaken for other disabilities like MS or other things. So it does. I agree with you. A lot of people don't know what cerebral palsy is because it does have such a wide net in that. So over the years, I went from hospital to hospital, physical therapy to physical therapy, and partly I got lucky, partly the science and the medicine got better. And I was, grateful to be in the right place and I was in New York. I grew up in a very good city for that to be the case. And when I was a little older, at 11, I found out that I was HIV positive because my mom didn't know when to tell me. She didn't know what the right appropriate age would be to tell me. And the reason for that is kids were getting kicked out of school for being HIV positive. Parents were protesting to keep kids who are HIV positive out of schools with their kids. So it was a very tricky thing. You tell a kid who's too young and they can't hold secrets. They can't, that's too much on them too. So I don't, blame my mom for waiting. And unfortunately, she didn't even get to be the one to tell me. I found out accidentally. And I found out from a doctor who wasn't aware of our situation and wasn't aware that she hadn't told me. And he just kind of blurted it out. And so on the ride home that day after the doctors, I had the whole conversation about that I was born with this, how it happened, what my father did, and that I couldn't tell anyone. And life is funny in this way of the next week, guess what we're learning in health class in 7th grade? HIV and AIDS and death rates. And I'm sitting there in class like, here's the thing a week ago I didn't know I had. Now I know I have this. Now I know how horrible this thing is. And I can't tell anyone. And so I went for about 6 years before I was open about it.
Okay. Let's go back because and by the way, and if you've seen any of our shows, we follow a path, kind of a loose format, but it also depends on the person's story. And I think because your backstory informs so much of the present, we have a lot of follow-up questions, Joseph. Yeah. But we'll get to the fun stuff too. But I guess, God, you were 11. Yeah. So what was that like, in the coming months and even that year mentally? And obviously mental health, today in 2025 is different from what it was in the 90s too, in terms of stigma and resources and availability and conversation around it. Teenagers today are like, I need mental health. That we didn't even know the phrase, right?
No.
So, I imagine that's like a real emotional gut punch. What were you feeling? How did you deal with it? How did you cope?
I honestly, and I look back, and again, I mentioned I'm currently writing a book about it, and I'm finding myself struggling so much because I clearly blocked it out. I clearly was so traumatized by the situation that I couldn't take it in as fully as I needed to. And I think if I had, I would have been I was in a very dark place as a teenager. As I got a little older, when that became the conversation where everyone, at 11, I was kind of like, I don't know what to do with this. I'm very scared, but I also don't know what to do with this. And I don't know how to cope with this. And I can't tell anyone about this. So I just have to shove it down and feel sad all the time. But then as a teenager, moving into, and end of middle school, early high school, kids are rough. Teens are rough. And every day was age jokes. I was in the prime South Park time. That was middle school, high school for me. And so every day was just AIDS jokes. Every day was like flippant conversations about people with HIV as if they never would be existing in their world. And that was, I think that got to be so hard. And that was really the like catalyst for me to talk about it because I couldn't handle it anymore. I couldn't handle that these friends that I had that liked me, that wanted to hang out with me, wanted to do stuff, were just so casually talking about it. I mean, everything. It would be like, don't touch that gum, you're going to get AIDS. Or like, oh no, I just had sex with your mom, we're going to get AIDS. Like, everything was that. That was the time. It was that and saying you're gay. Like, it was just endlessly those two things. And so it got to a point I had to free myself of it. And honestly, talking about it and why I do what I do now is what saved me. It was the only path because I just had to keep talking about it and I had to get it out because it was so much more of a demon if I just sat with it.
I mean, I'm 40. Ollie, I always forget. Are you 47 or 48?
Well,
Wonderful.
I'm a bit up there. I am 48.
Okay.
You literally, it'll happen when you're like, I
Well, I
don't know
say this
anymore.
because I am a person who does not have HIV, and is not gay, and those two things affected me so much too, growing up in the '90s, because it was all you didn't want to be, because of everything you're saying, because of the trickle down to kids, and that was the conversation. And there was plenty of racism and misogyny and stuff too. But as a young boy in that time, yeah, I mean, it was a real pressure cooker. I often wonder now. I mean, my kids, by the way, are 7 and 5, and so it's not like they're in the throes of like adolescence, that I could compare. But I'm often, I wonder if it's better, if bullying is less, or if it's just kind of mutated. Certainly, it's a different thing. I don't know that they're teasing about those specific things, but I'm curious too because you're married to a woman. I assume I don't. You can't even make assumptions these days. I assume you're straight based on that, but maybe not. I don't know.
Well, I'm actually pansexual.
Okay. So I'm curious then how the dialogue then around the having HIV and your own sexuality and how that affected your identity and coming up because it's certainly like in the culture was very tied together, right?
Yeah, so it was actually the reason being HIV positive was the reason I didn't come out till I was pansexual until I was like late 20s, early 30s, and that was because of HIV. Because as I started to finally, again, we talked earlier about the video game esque layers. It was like I got to handle one thing at a time. I can't I can't do it all at the same time, and so I found myself finding my niche to say or my freedom in speaking about HIV and getting people to listen because they saw it as this heterosexual white guy talking about HIV and wow, that's novel and that's different and I'll listen to that because that seems like I didn't know that could be a thing. And so it was something that really I was grateful for it because it got people to hear me and I did my documentary on that and I did all these things. But then I became so fixed to that. I became so beholden to it where I was like, if I come out as pansexual at this point, it almost negates everything I've done because what's going to happen is people are going to see pansexual and they're going to see HIV and they're going to just go, got it, I know the story, and ignore everything else. And that got really scary for me because it was like, well, I want to educate, and I joke that like HIV is the one space that we need more white heterosexual men because they're just not there, and they do exist, but they're not. They're the ones who are the least likely to talk about it.
Well, I am curious. I mean, I imagine you know the numbers certainly better than we do in terms of white heterosexual men, and certainly today who are in the HIV space or suffer from it. Um, how many of them contracted from drug use versus are born with it versus sexual activity?
Well, and that's the thing. It's self-identification. It's you'll see it in under. you know, like when I used to be on online dating, for instance, you would see it in chats like that, and you would see it from some people who were born with it, some people um, who were drug users, or like again, people like my father who were more of a drug user, and probably most likely from what he would have shared, got it through needle sharing more than anything. It exists, but they're not going to identify. And you see it. It's almost like you'll hear it in the shadows. You'll hear it, but no one's coming forward. And on the surveys, on anything that like would be a demographic identification for statistics, it's going to be the least likely to be able to even get that. That's where we're at. It's so hard to even get that kind of stat. Um, that's actually like logistically like accurate. It's just, but they do exist and they're out there. And I think it's just, you know, again, being born HIV positive doesn't happen now as much in the US or in certain countries because we've come so far and we do so much testing. And the drug use stuff has become a lot more. I mean, you'll find safe needle sites now. You know, there's so much stuff that has helped bring that stuff in. And I mean, this tangents a little, but I think that's also what's caused this lack of awareness about HIV now. It's almost like in an effort to fix HIV or manage HIV, and we've gotten so far, it's made people be much more flippant about it and feel like it's a thing of the past and it's stuck in the 80s. And it's because media presents HIV as an 80s, 90s topic and not as a present day thing that we still are working towards getting a cure for and keeping funding for and resources available for.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I mean, I think about it as almost like more akin to diabetes now than, this illness that could potentially kill you,
Yeah.
which is really,
Which is,
diabetes unchecked and untreated can too, but no one's scared of it,
yeah.
So I find that interesting. Let's pivot
Yeah.
because I want to talk about, so many different things, but let's talk about your meet cute with your wife, how you guys got together. I know you said it was like, almost instant. You guys had such a connection. What was that like, in terms of like relationship history and then like how you knew she was the one?
So we actually met because we were with the same agent. We're both actors. And so I know the classic story. Um, and we were with the same agency who at the time repped disabled actors. And so we had connected online and through like the Facebooks and the Instagrams and the things like that. And we had both come out of our past like relationships and we started chatting. I was living in Los Angeles. She was living in New York. And literally we were planning on our first like big meetup and date in March of 2020. And so literally she was supposed to fly out to California March 26th. And then the pandemic hit and everything shut down, and we had to wait about 7 months before we could actually meet. And so we spent the first 7 months just talking all day, and we had nothing. Everyone was locked down. There was nothing else to do, and we just talked endlessly. And then finally, when we got to meet up, we spent like a week together in a bed and breakfast little Airbnb thing. And by that point, things were starting to open up, and we were just flying back and forth. It was actually weirdly safer to, at that point, fly on a plane than it was to go to a grocery store because there was less people on the planes than there were in the airports than there were in grocery stores. And so we just kept going back and forth. And I mean, it was pretty quickly that I realized like we connected on a way that was we both had a lot of the same interests. We both just understood innately what we were like the disability stuff, which for so long in my life, people kept telling me to find someone who's disabled but they would say it in a way of like, oh, you should find someone like you. And like, it would always be in like people I was interested in and people. So I'd find myself feeling like I was very, I don't know, like not that I wasn't open to it. I had dated other people with disabilities, but I had felt a little scorned by people assuming that. But ironically though, like we do get each other the most. And we do understand the hard days, and we do understand the chronic pain, and we give each other grace on that, and it does become a big part of your life. And I couldn't imagine, we were both big caretakers in our previous relationships where we were doing all the heavy lifting. And so now the biggest thing that we probably struggle with is that worrying about the other one doing too much. And that's our constant battle is like, you're doing too much. Now I need to, but in my effort to do something, I'm then doing too much. And so it's just this never ending struggle. Um, Eventually when I figured out she was the one, it was just obvious. It wasn't an epiphany. It was just like, oh, things are working. This is clearly like, this is the best thing that I've ever had in my life. And I don't want to lose this. So I'm going to make sure that I can do everything possible to keep it. And um, I just knew. And so when she came out to visit, when I was going to move, we had already decided I was going to move to New York because I grew up there, and I was kind of done with LA. I'd done 14 years in LA, and I was kind of over it. And so when she came out to New York, to LA to visit to help move me to New York, I picked her up from the airport with a coffee, and which coffee is our obsession. And so I had an empty cup of coffee, and I had the ring inside it. And so I handed it to her at the airport, and she was like, "There's nothing in here." I'm like, "No, there is. Just check it." And she opened it up, and I probably got like 2 sentences into my speech, where she just said yes, of course. And so it was like I didn't even finish the speech. But
That's
You know
awesome.
what?
That is really awesome.
Yeah.
That is really, really,
I'm
really
sitting
awesome.
here thinking, is it that your life story is so remarkable, or are you just such a good storyteller, or both? Because everything you're saying is like a movie, which I guess it's appropriate that you're writing a memoir and that will probably be adapted into a film, and just invite us to the premiere. How did you? Were you a theater kid? Like, tell us about choosing, talk about like you're like I went through all this struggle and now I want to be a struggling actor. That makes sense. I know it so well. Like how did you choose how'd you get the acting bug?
well, I initially was thrown into acting because when I was in high school, I wanted to go into automotive and I wanted to take a extracurricular to learn about cars. And my school at the time was in Florida, and they were just like, disabled kid, heavy machinery, doesn't seem safe. Let's just throw you in theater. Why don't you just do that instead? And so they picked it for me, and I'm like, okay, I like movies. I was a latchkey kid growing up. Everything was about TV and movies, and growing up on the TV was pretty much a third parent or a first and a second parent, depending on how you look at it. Um, and I was like, okay, I'll do this. And I ended up really enjoying it. And then I went to a summer camp that was a theater camp. And we had this exercise, and this kind of goes back to the earlier thing about talking about coming out, about being HIV positive. The exercise in our class, what our director wanted us to do was go on stage and tell everyone in our class something we've never told anyone. And so at 17, I was like, I got it. I'm literally giving a platform here. I'm given the opportunity to do this. And this feels like the right people to do this with. And so I went up on stage and I was like, I was born HIV positive. And they were so supportive and so loving. It changed everything. And I didn't know how depressed I was. I didn't know how sad I was. And going through that and finally being able to share it, I was like, theater gave me life, so I'm going to give my life to theater.
That is theater kids for you. I mean, the most beautiful thing, you're talking about just the worst of society and like they were making AIDS jokes and then you go to theater camp and they're like, "We love you."
Yeah.
That's why people love theater.
Yeah.
That's
And I
amazing.
mean, my mentors, the directing, the heads of the theater camp, they were so lovely. I mean, they were, when I was on crutches at the time and they knew I wanted to get to a cane, they surprised me on opening night with a white cane that everyone in the theater signed. And it's like basically like whenever you're ready to use this cane. And it was so sweet. It was everything. And they knew I wanted to do it. And so when I graduated high school, they're like, if you really are interested in being an actor, they were based in California, but they would go to different cities and they would do theater camps throughout the year. They're like, we have a couch for you in California if you really want to get started. And so I moved out with two buddies of mine. We had like no money. We drove across the country from Florida to California, and we crashed at their house until we got an apartment. And they helped us kind of figure it out. And like they still are one of the amazing people. And they wrote a lot of the Disney sequels. So they like wrote Beauty and the Beast, The Enchanted Christmas, or like The Lion King 2. So they were known for that for a long
Yeah.
time.
Shout them out. What are their names?
Flip Kobler and Cindy Marcus, and they're fantastic. And I owe them so much of everything. And Dennis
What was
Poor.
do you remember what the show was? Was it a musical? Was it a straight play?
Um,
What were you guys opening that
their
night?
their thing their thing was always to adapt literature into teen theater. So they would do adaptations of like Edgar Allan Poe or classic works like Jekyll and Hyde, but they'd make it like teen based. So
Hmm.
like that year we were doing a version of Jekyll and Hyde, where the head of this kid is trying to do a science project and he's trying to stay up all night and he creates this concoction to keep himself awake, and then he develops five personalities, and so each of them were a different part of his like personality. And so I played the dog version of him, and so I was Fido Hyde, which is very silly, very fun stuff. But they still do that kind of stuff now, and so yeah, it's really wonderful. They
You're out in LA, or you were out
yeah
now. I'm going back in
yeah
time.
no of course.
You're out in LA and you're auditioning. Are you waiting tables? What are you doing? How are you
Uh,
through?
I did a lot of random jobs. I did Target, and I would do. For a week. I only lasted a week doing this. I was trying to sell living wills. I was like telemarketer doing living wills, which is a horrible job because you're just calling older people and telling them like, "Look, you're gonna die soon. Do you want to get something going here?" And like that does. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. And but I was mainly auditioning at that point. I was just going out and like taking buses and subways, and then buses again, and then trains to get to auditions, and for a long time. And then I got into film school because I decided I needed to learn the other side of this to really understand what I'm doing, and that's what got me into producing. And then I ended up making my documentary off of that. So I actually it was supposed to be my thesis in film school, and my film teacher at the time was like, why does a kid want to with a disability want to do stuff about the AIDS walk and like a PSA on why people go to the AIDS walk? And I was like, well, I told him my story, and he was like, that's the film, that's what you should be doing. And so he came on as the director, and what was supposed to be my thesis film became a full-length documentary, and he followed me for 3 years, and we produced it, and we went and traveled with it, and got wonderful producers on board. We were very lucky. We got Hugh Jackman and Emma Thompson, Steve and Nancy Carell, all came on board through Alfred Molina, who's in the documentary with me, and he does the AIDS walk with me, which was very lovely. So it just spiraled out, and then that gave me my career, and I just started producing and casting, and then learned about more of the industry on that side, and went back and got the agent, got the manager, and started actually professionally auditioning.
So it was the back door. It
Yeah.
wasn't like, oh, I booked something. You kind of
No.
went on the other side to get in front of the camera.
Yeah, yeah. I
I'm
went on the
kind of
other side,
curious.
and yeah. No, no.
So you came to LA straight out of high school?
Yep. 18. Just right. I just graduated, and then
Wow.
after the summer was done, we just went right to LA.
I mean, that's it's pretty ballsy. You know, like it's like I had to like convince myself and my parents I'll go to college, I guess, but that's diving right in. And then where did you go to film school?
LA Film School in Hollywood. Uh,
Yeah.
and then I ended up running their casting department for a few years after I graduated, which that
Yeah.
kind of I learned a little later. That's kind of at a school function was like they had to keep a hiring rate. So it was kind of interesting. It's kind of a Mickey, we call it like a McDonald's kind of school where it's great if you get the most out of it if you're there and you're actually renting the equipment and you're learning. you can really get stuff out of there, but they're a very quick program, and it kind of the way they keep their hiring rate up, which is like, oh, we have this wonderful success rate of getting our students hired, but they don't tell you as often they'll hire them back. And so the success rate is because they're just hiring them back into the program. And so
Still a job.
still a job,
It's
exactly.
still a job, pal. I'm gonna tell
Exactly.
you. Yeah, I think I worked in a casting studio not too far away from LA Film School, like on Vine. So
Yeah.
that's so funny, dude. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Well,
That's the
all right,
hustle.
and now let's fast forward though, because now you're a filmmaker, working actor, and a dad. How are you managing that, especially with such a young? And is your wife still acting? Are you guys still both in the business? And how are you figuring that out?
I mean, well, we could say we're very fortunate that right now there's no work to be had, so therefore we can focus on him. Um, but realistically, I mean, it's kind of oddly enough probably one of the best careers if it's functioning the way it should be functioning. It is one of the best careers you could have because you kind of take these jobs that are short. They tend to be short, or if you're really lucky, they can be long. But they tend to be short chunks, and you just work really hard during that time, and then you get to go back home with your family, and then you kind of, again, if everything's functioning appropriately, you can, make a good amount and like be able to sustain, and then do that model, and it kind of allows you to spend the time if it's functioning. And I know for me and for both of us with auditions, especially when they're happening and he's here and he's doing his thing, and you kind of have to be less precious. And I think that's been good for me as a writer and an actor, being less precious and just knowing like I've got to show up in this moment and I've got to do the audition, and I can't sit and go like, could I have done this better? Should I do this line? You have like maybe an hour for nap time to get it in before he's gonna wake up, and you kind of have to just take more shots quicker and be bolder. And I found that with writing too. You only have such a small amount of time to do it. You better be confident with what you're doing.
I know you're writing a memoir right now. Are you writing a bunch of different projects at once? And what's your process like? How
Oh,
many
I'm sorry.
creative projects
You
do you
cut
have
out a
going on at
bit,
a
so I
time?
didn't
Are
hear
you in
the
the
first
middle of a
part of that.
bunch? Do you wait until one thing is done?
One sec. Sorry.
Did we lose you, Joseph? Are you still there?
Hi. Sorry.
Hi. Oh no, we lost him. Okay. Well, maybe he'll come back. And now for a word from our sponsor. I can't hear you. Are you saying something funny?
That was funny. When I need to clean a computer screen, I reach for Agent Orange. This is one of the best uh, cloths in the biz.
Hi
All
guys.
right.
I'm
Oh,
sorry
he's back.
about that.
No worries. We just did
Hey.
a
Oh,
quick
good.
commercial break, so it was
Oh,
good.
good. Perfect.
Yeah.
Sorry. So sorry. I missed that last
No,
question.
no. I
Obviously.
was just you froze a little, so we'll figure out what I think we're okay. But you're back, and we were just talking about creative projects, and I think you were saying that you find that being a dad, actor, creator with a young kid means you don't have to be so precious. You can just kind of throw spaghetti at the wall, so to
Yeah.
speak. How many, in addition to the memoir, how many creative projects are you working on at a time? Do you stop and start? Do you come back to things? Like, because you strike me as a pretty prolific person.
Well, I like to always have a few things happening at the same time that keeps me mentally like from getting bored or getting stuck. So I feel like if I find myself stuck on one thing, I can try to jump to the next thing, and maybe that jams something out and like allows me to figure out what I'm missing in the other thing. So my wife and I have right now a project that we're working on together where we produced, directed, starred in it, and wrote it together called Adoptive, which is it's a comedy about a disabled married couple looking to adopt, which we thought might be the process we were on and the journey we were on and the thing we started writing before Milo was born. And we felt so interested in it, and it became so fascinating because we found that there's so much complications and complex feelings around adoption and ethical adoption, and also what it's like to adopt as a disabled couple, and how there's a lot of judgment and stereotype, and like people will literally be put on the bottom of lists if they find out that they're disabled to become a parent. And so we just felt very interested in the subject, and so we created this show that we're now in post-production on. It's going to be on YouTube, and it's going to be on Instagram and TikTok and all these things, and go out to festivals. So we're doing like a traditional pilot version of it, and then we're doing a vertical series version of it as well. And so
when is this going to drop?
This is going to drop in late winter, so probably within the next few months, right before, yeah. And we're very proud of it. It's looking wonderful, and we had a fantastic cast, and we shot a 44-minute pilot in 5 days. While while taking care of Milo, he was probably about 6 months at the time.
I just got to say, major freaking props to do that. That is freaking incredible. I mean, a 6-8 month. I mean, my wife will refer to these years as the dark times she doesn't like to think about. You know what I mean? Like when we got into like 3, it was when it was a little more like, oh, okay, cool. And you're doing that now. I don't even want to know what you're going to do when Milo's 5. Jesus.
Well, it was definitely we got a lot of help from Carrie's mom, and which was always very nice, and we all live together, which is lovely. So he gets to grow up with her. It's a lot, but we're very grateful we did it, and Carrie will tell you I was probably the one who was more maybe less sure that we could do it, and I was a little more like, I don't know, is this the right time to do it? Maybe not. But she was right, and she knew it. We had this moment to do it, and we had to do it.
Well, you said, Joseph, there's never a right time.
Exactly. There you go.
You just got to do it. You
Yeah.
just got to do it.
Yeah.
What? I know you're in the thick of it. What would you go back and tell Joseph, a year ago, and then we're going to ask you a couple times. What would you tell Joseph pre-kid, and then what would you tell yourself maybe when you were a teenager? If you could go back with all the wisdom you've accrued.
Pre-kid is don't try to predict or like have an idea of what it's going to be like in your head pre the situation, because you're just going to be chasing something that is also just not realistic, or it's also not what the moment actually needs. So it's like not trying to get to we talked about at the beginning of this, like social media app, like I get to like, oh, it's gonna be this, and it's only gonna be like this, it's gonna be beautiful, it's only gonna be this picture perfect thing that's like magical, and it is in so many ways, it is that, but it's also tough and stressful and emotional and tiring. And so I think it's I think just enjoy it for what it is in the moment and be present, and not try to like imagine what month 2 is going to be like, what month 3 is going to be like, what it's going to be like having a kid, and like not too idyllic, I think, with like how you're going to present yourself, and just be like kind and know that you're going to make mistakes, and you're going to be like, oh, I could have done that thing better. I really could have done that thing better, and I could have been more open in this moment. And then as a teenager, hold on. Just hold on. It's going to be okay. You just hold on.
I have to tell myself that sometimes,
I I love this has been so great because this is like hitting so many levels of interest for me, and a lot of it is literally about the biz, the showbiz, and you know your journey is so unique. What advice would you give fellow actors who have disabilities or also chronic illness who are trying to break into the biz that's already challenging without all that?
Um, just find the thing that you love about it, and don't, again, it's almost like the same thing I would say with the parenting. Find what you love about it. Don't expect something, a version of it, and don't do it for the reasons that you know, it's hard to see, like, don't do it because you want to be famous. Don't do it because you want a certain like a certain image. Don't do it, just make sure you're loving what you're doing, and make sure that's the most important thing, and that you love the art of it. And if you do, and you find the right spaces that are allowing that, then you're gonna be fine. If you surround yourself with people who have the right intentions as actors, to learn about the art, to delve into scene work, to do the right things for it, not the socializing, not the networking, not the other stuff. If you just focus in on like why this matters to you, the rest will figure itself out, because you can't control the rest. You can't. I've gone up for things that I could have been and these things where you're perfect for on paper and you've done everything right, and they're still going to go with somebody because they just decided, like, oh, that person has red hair. Wouldn't that be fun? And that's it. And or their cousin. It's so you can't control that. So don't make that. Just enjoy the art.
You know, something you brought up twice in two different, aspects of your life that I think is so fascinating. Something that I'm hanging on to now is you realize, like, you really want to surround yourself with the right people, the right team. That will help provide the right mindset when you're, walking the path. And walking the path of life is hard, whether you're a parent, whether you're an artist, and that is definitely something I'm just absorbing from someone who's literally walked an impressive path yourself. So I just want to thank you for that, because it's so true for people. Gotta have good people around you, and it's not everybody. You never know. People seem like, like, oh yeah, maybe I always try and like see the better in other people, but some people just ain't bringing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it'll surprise you sometimes too. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Hey, Joseph, when you think about what Milo is going to think of you, and the way he'll describe you, maybe decades from now, maybe he's bringing someone home. They're like, what's your dad like? And he's like, my dad is just, the most fill in the blank. How do you want that conversation to go? How do you want your kid to describe you 20 years from now?
Safe. I want to be a safe space, and I want to be comfortable, and I want to be someone who's like, oh, you don't have to worry. Oh, you're gonna enjoy it. He's very chill. He's very safe. Like, you can talk to him. You could say stuff around, like, I grew up around a lot of not safe men, around a lot of fear and being scared by older men in my life, and that is the last thing that I want to be. And so I think if I can just be a happy place, a safe space, that's the most important thing.
Well said. Hey, can Ali Khan bring you through the lightning round?
Oh, yes.
Ali Khan, bring
Here it
Joseph
comes.
Kibler through the dad lightning round, won't you?
All right, Joseph Kibler, are you ready for the dad lightning round?
Yes.
Pick a superpower: super strength or super speed.
Oh, well, if I pick super speed, it's going to be about normal speed for me. So I'll go for super speed, because why not? That'd be fun.
All right. Parenting advice in 5 words or less.
don't be hard on yourself.
Amen to that. Coffee or Red Bull? I think I know the answer to this.
Coffee.
Greatest TV dad of all time?
Oh. Ooh, that's tough. That's tough. I'm gonna go with uh, Full House. Uh,
Which one, though?
oh gosh, yeah, yeah, you're right. What's his name?
Bob Saget.
Bob Saget. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, if you went with David Coulier, I'd be like, I mean, it's a choice. That's probably what Neil would have picked. One book every dad should read.
I think, ooh, that's tough. I'm trying to think of. I have not taken in any media in like a year.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and that's understandable. That's the
I
freaking truth about that stage.
I would say, um, The Alchemist. I
Oh,
love The Alchemist.
all right.
Uh, I think it's full of a lot of life lessons and important journeys. Also, City of Thieves. City of Thieves is such a dad book. It is a
Really?
historical. It's about two guys, male camaraderie, and it's very funny and thrilling. And I won't give anything else away, but City of Thieves.
Man, Dick Joseph is smart. Like, those are those insightful responses, not just like, how to be a dad or Dad 101. Um, dream dinner guest, dead or alive?
Michael J. Fox.
Hell yeah. Huge. Well, that's for another episode. Um, album you can't wait to share with your son.
That is tough. That's like that is the number one. That's so hard. Um, oh my gosh. For me, it was going to be the "Wish You Were Here" album, Pink Floyd.
All right, Floyd in the house. Favorite book to read to your son?
Oh, right now he is devouring The Hungry Caterpillar. So
Oh yeah,
yeah,
I
he
know
loves that
that
one.
one well. You know
Yeah,
what's so funny? For a second, I was like, "Come on, captive audience. They'll take what they can get." But you're right. There are those things because at 8 months, there's attention.
yeah,
There is some attention there.
yeah.
You get a time machine for 24 hours. Where are you going?
Gosh, this is very selfish, but I'm going back to the '90s and I'm going to Seattle and I'm enjoying the grunge era in its full.
Good for you. Good for you. Just gonna have some fun.
Yeah,
Last TV show you binged.
The Diplomat, which is
I've been seeing it in the queue. I
it's
haven't pulled the trigger yet. Yeah.
oh, it's very good, and we've been so behind on this new season because I don't know why, I don't know why we are, um, but Bradley Whitford is one of our favorites, and Carrie got to work with him for a long time on The Handmaid's Tale, so we
Mm.
always love being able to show support and like watching people that we actually know in real life, which is so fun. So he's the reason for that. We want to get back on it.
I shouldn't be surprised because you had freaking Alfred Molina in your documentary, but I did kind of go, "Oh my God, Bradley Whitford? No way, no way!" But you're deep in the biz. And finally, Joseph, best part about being a dad.
It's given me a newfound confidence that I never had before because I'm responsible for somebody, and therefore I can say things like, no, I'm not available for this anymore, or no, my time is precious, I can't do this thing. And I've never been that way ever in my life. And I think it's a sense of purpose and grounding that I've never felt before.
Man, I got to tell you, you were, I mean, out the gate when we started this, honestly, you were an amazing guest to land. I'll just say that right now. But I say this with a full heart. It is so wonderful to say, Joseph Kibler, you are the world's greatest dad.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for having me on this. I'm so glad I did this. It's again about those things about like our time is so limited, and I saw your post come in or saw your email come in, and I was so thrilled to do it. It seems like such a lovely
yeah.
space.
Well, I was going to say, we're flattered now knowing that you say no to so many things. We're like, I can't.
Yeah.
Joseph Kibler,
Yeah.
thank you for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
And I better go check in on this kid.
Please do.
Yeah, I know. You might be due. You might be due for being a dad.
All right, we'll talk to you
thank you,
soon.
man.
Thank you, Joseph.
All right, thank you so much. Bye.